collide. You must listen more often. Drawing me in, and I can't slow down, no. Can you feel it too? There ain't no stopping now. Feet off the ground, head to the sky. Yeah, wind by my side. You in my vision, directly we collide. You pull me in, I don't resist. Time seems to fly, but the clock doesn't tick. I crash into you, we both feel the hit. We both feel the way that our chemicals mix, and I wish that
I just keep my eyes shut. Maybe this time it'll be.
resist.
let's forget about tomorrow and live for tonight while we're free. Touch the sky. Tonight we're coming alive.
Hey there folks, what is going on? My name is Blue and welcome to the 11th ESL Weekly 2 vs 2 Cup. Today I believe we have around like 12 teams signed up, and well, welcome back ladies and gentlemen indeed to the ESL Weeklies. We are just about set and ready to go, so we're not going to waste any time whatsoever. We're going to jump directly into our first match. Heading into the game cameras, we're going to be having Team 2HP taking on Team Milk and Biscuits, and like I said, that was a very quick introduction as we're jumping right into things here as these guys are all righty and ready to begin. So taking a very fast look at the builds here. We've got Sparrow, first of all, running on a warrior. I believe he is going to be playing Zerkerhambo, and that does appear it'll be the case. Fairly standard trait split, again, for anybody who's not already familiar with this build. Does quite a bit of AoE damage as well as CC too, so it's going to be a very formidable opponent. Does tend to get a little bit more strength in a Conquest game mode, so it will lose some of its strength there due to the high mobility of this game type, but we're obviously going to have to wait and see, and it still, generally speaking, works out fairly well in these 2v2 scenarios as well. He is actually going to be supported by our guard Guardian over here, and Endless Dreamer, who is going to be playing a fairly typical altruistic healing build, which, to be completely honest, for a 2v2 scenario is an extremely rare thing to see. We almost always see kind of DPS Guardians coming into play here, just because the support kind of does gimp you quite a bit. You really do need that damage in order to keep yourself active and rolling in these 2v2 environments. So running with a straight-up Bunker Guardian does tend to be a very odd choice, but we will see obviously how it plays out, and it will still pair very well together with that with that Hambo there, who still does quite a bit of damage and has the CC as well to on his own kind of lock down his opponent, so he still can do very well, and obviously Endless Dreamer will be acting as quite the supportive utility for Spare. Moving on to the blue team, our team Milk and Biscuits, who have been performing extremely well in the ESL Weeklies. First off, taking a look at Grotesque over here, who I believe is going to be playing DPS Guardian again. Fairly standard for a DPS Guardian. The trait split fairly representative of what we usually see, 2-1-6-1-4 over here, taking the 4 points into Virtues to get that little bit of extra defense of the Condi Cleanse over here, the 6 points into Valor to obviously boost the potency of the triple meditation that we always see these DPS Guardians running, and then his weapon choices are going to be a Great Sword, so we'll have that nice amount of spike damage that can come into play from that, as well as running with the Scepter for a little bit of extra range. I personally prefer to run the Sword just to get that extra spike of damage, but Scepter also works very well for chasing opponents and just in general getting a little bit more AoE off there too, and Focus as well will obviously be used to get a couple extra defensive utilities, and the Ray of Judgment always very good as well. Running in with the Zerker's Amulet, so full damage, as well as the runes of the Flame Legion over there. Also going to be running with Sigils of Energy and Rage on Rage, a very interesting choice there indeed on the Greatsword, as well as again another Energy and then a Sigil of Air over here on the Scepter Focus set. And then last but not least, we've got Bazzy over here playing on his Mesmer. He's going to be playing, I believe, fairly standard Shatter Mesmer, and indeed that is the case. 4-4-0-0-6, huge amounts of damage from this build, but he himself is going to be very, very squishy if he's not paying attention, so he will have to be very careful of his positioning to make sure he does not get too close to that warrior over on the red team. But with that said, I believe we are pretty much ready to go, so let us begin with Game 1. Once again, as a reminder, these are best of 3 sets, ladies and gentlemen, so the first team to 2 points will move on. We are currently in the round of 16, so the winners of this will move on to the round of 8 or quarterfinals of this week's event, and then we shall go from there. I believe we have 1 or 2 games to go through. 2 games, I believe, if I'm looking at the brackets correctly now. Yep. In the round of 16 that we'll be going through, it's going to be this game now that we have 2HP versus Milk and Biscuits. Following that, we're going to see Bird is the Word take on Arizona Dream, and then we will move into the round of 8 from there. As a quick reminder as well, we're only going to be spectating the top half of this week's cup. The bottom half is being performed in another arena to make sure that the cup doesn't run super duper long, so we unfortunately will not be spectating that, but we will obviously get the good point of view from these upper matches. Game has now begun, however, and our players are out and on the field, so we're going to see how these teams take things. Keep in mind a few things here. The blue team is extremely squishy when compared to the red side. They've got a Zerker Warrior, granted, but keep in mind, even a Zerker Warrior on Hambo is still a pretty tanky individual, but look at this. Big deeps going right off there on the Sparacock. You can see already the Endure Pain being popped here, trying to negate some of that damage, but he is already pretty much in the downstay here. I'm going to be fairly surprised if he actually manages to get away from that. We do have quite a bit of support coming in from Endless Dreamer, but a Moa comes off from Bazzy directly onto him. A little bit of a delayed Moa, so it was a bit surprising there for Endless Dreamer. Not too surprising that we saw that actually going off there. Sparacock still has all this pressure going off onto him, and Endless Dreamer as well, with him being so low, there's just absolutely nothing he can do here. Very good deeps indeed there. Going to absolutely destroy Spare. He'll go into the downstate, and that leaves only Endless Dreamer up and alive, and unfortunately, as Endless Dreamer is on a straight-up Bunker Guardian, there is literally zero chance that this is going to end up going into a 1v2, so with him slowly getting knocked out over here, we will be seeing our blue team take a very dominant round 1, and this will put them 1 victory away from moving on to the round of 8. So again, what we kind of saw there, as you can tell, blue team had that big burst. That's one of the big bonuses that they are going to get by running a composition such as this, is that when they do engage on their opponents, they're instantly just going to get this huge spike of burst. However, they are also very squishy. So if red team plays things a little bit more carefully, tries to go for a flanking around these sides over here or something like that at the start, to where they could get a little bit closer to the blue team before they were forced to push in, they themselves may be able to force the engagement onto the blue team, which would give the red side 2 HP, a rather large advantage in my opinion, just because of the fact that, again, both of the members of the blue team are extremely squishy individuals, and they really cannot take direct pressure for that long of a time here. So if they force the engagement, if they can put the pressure onto Milk and Biscuits, they will start to control the fight and hopefully start to make a comeback. They do have to watch, however, their opening positioning, because that time when they headed straight through towards the middle there, it really just opened up the gate for Grotesque to dive directly in with the judge's intervention, and really, again, to just go for that huge amount of DPS onto Spare. And as well, with Grotesque kind of holding the front line here with him porting in, it does also make for a very decent amount of positioning for Bazzi over here, as he can just hang back, sit towards the back here, and just let his clones come out there and ready to get all three of them up and then go directly for a shatter as you would really need to. And thankfully, because he's sitting in the back there, he's really not at any sort of risk to get engaged on either, just because you don't really have any ports or anything over here on the red side. So we're going to see now going into game 2 if anything changes up on either of these sides here. Once again, red team is going to opt to go directly through the middle here, so we may see a similar scenario. We did see red team making a little bit better use of the LOS that time and a much earlier pop of Endure Pain. The one that we saw in the last one there came out way too late there for it to really be of any use there. All it did was give him a couple extra seconds of life here, but it has gone off and it's now coming, and he's now susceptible to damage here once more, as we keep our point of view on the Bazzi, trying to wait for that perfect opportunity to go for more damage on the Spare, as you can see here. Blue team as well, or red team rather, trying to retaliate themselves over back onto Grotesque, but Grotesque seems to be managing himself quite well. He is getting somewhat low on cooldowns, and as well we're going to see that Mo coming off once again as Spare gets rather low, so that Endless cannot support Spare. Spare once again in the down state, there's very little Endless is able to do in that Mo form, and with that said, he's going to get knocked out, leaving only Endless up and alive. And with that, I believe we are going to have a quick 2-0 in favor of Milk and Biscuits, meaning they're going to move on to the round of 8. As for 2 HP, they unfortunately are going to be eliminated right here, but hopefully we will see them again returning next week in the ESL Weekly 2-on-2 number 12. With that said, though, guys, we are going to be coming to a close of this round. Our next game is going to be coming up here in just a few moments. It'll be The Bird is the Word taking on Arizona Dream. That is coming up in just a few moments, so stick around for more of the ESL Weekly 2-on-2. Be right back, guys. And welcome back once more, ladies and gentlemen, to the ESL Weekly 2 vs 2 Cup number 11. We're coming to our second and final round of 16 game here on the stream. It's going to be The Bird is the Word over on the red side, taking on Arizona Dream on the blue team. As this is the first time we are going to be seeing these teams play today, we're going to take a very quick look at the builds here. First off, taking a look at the red team. Does seem to be a rather Condi-focused team over here on the red side, as we take a first look over here at Trust Me, I'm Engie, running with Pistol Shield along with Sigils of Battle, and Smoldering also running with Runes of the Pirate, and a straight-up Rabid Rune, meaning this is a full Condi Engineer build. This has become, on EU, not so much as a rare occurrence, but just in general for Engie play, this has become a very rare build to see, as most Engies have kind of switched over to the very popular now Celestial Strength combination with a rifle to get a very good control Engie combination going. There's not many Engies that still run the Condi Engie, but it still works very well, still has a huge amount of Condi spike potential, so when we do see it, it does still work very well indeed. He is running a somewhat defensive trait split, opting to go for both the Backpack Regenerator and the Protection Injection over here in the Alchemy tree, so we'll have quite a bit of defense in that regard, but other than that, is still a very Condi-focused build. And moving on from that, once again, we do have Tamer, I believe, who's going to be playing Spirits. Once more, this will also, to note too, boost the Condi potency of Trust Me, I'm Engie, specifically through the Sun Spirit over here. He's going to get a little bit more burning off through the passive effects of that, and also, once more, Tamer will have quite a bit of Condi to offer on his own too, so we'll see how well that fares off against the blue team composition in just a second. Other than that, though, the Spirit Ranger is fairly typical in terms of its build spread here. Again, we do see it running with the Celestial Amulet, which is a bit odd, but I've actually noticed quite a few Spirit Rangers, when they do come into play running with that amulet there, it's become quite a popular amulet for really quite a few specs here. Really, I've seen most meta specs at least have one variation of the build that ends up running with the Celestial Amulet, so it is not too surprising that we see more support builds kind of adapting it here. Fairly standard weapons as well, with a Shurpo and Sword Dagger choice, along with Runes of the Pack here too. So we're going to see how that fares out. Keep in mind too that in a 2v2 scenario, that Spirit of Nature is just going to be a huge boon to the red team, as they will get that pretty much guaranteed reset. Red team, or blue team specifically, Talik will have quite a nice interrupt, though, assuming he's running with a fairly standard Thief build, which does appear it is the case. No, hold on here. What is this? So at the moment, we actually have what appears to be, again, the trade split seems pretty normal as we move over to the blue team here, 20066. It would appear it's a normal SD build, but when you look at the weapon sets, it's actually Dagger Dagger. Now, I don't know if this is trolling or not, because we really don't see Dagger Dagger that often. It could still be a typical SD build, which if that is the case, we are once again going to be seeing him jumping around quite a bit, having all the dodges, having all that fight sustainability, but not doing too much damage, especially with the lack of a strength rune over here, as he has opted to take Rune of the Traveler. But if he is running it with this spec specifically, and DD, I'm actually a bit curious to see how it goes, as I haven't really seen that combination played too often there, so I'm not really in the best position to talk about it. Keep in mind there too that, again, without all those dodges on the sword, if he is running DD, that is, not entirely sure if he is, but without all those dodges on the sword, there's going to be a lot of Connie Spike really getting thrown onto him, kind of at random here from both Trust Me and Tamer, so that might end up being a problem here for the guys on the blue team. Last but not least, however, we are going to be having Fish Lover, yet another DPS Guardian coming into play here today, running with a Great Sword, Scepter, and Focus, pretty much the same thing as that DPS Guardian we saw playing in the last round there, so we don't need to spend too much time taking a look at it. We will note, however, this is a much more offensive DPS Guardian, as he has 4 points going over here into Zeal in order to get Focus Mastery, a smaller recharge on those focus skills in his offhand there, and has not opted to go for the virtues. So he, too, is going to be just a little bit more susceptible to Connie, so that may end up actually being some trouble for him. We're going to have to wait and see, though, how things end up going, as we are pretty much ready to go. So as soon as our teams are readied up, we are going to get started with the first round here of Bird is the Word over on the red side, taking on Arizona Dream on the blue team. Just waiting for the game to begin now, folks.
The match starts soon. Last chance to nail down your strategy.
Alright guys, and here we go. Game 1 getting started. Gates are going to be opening up, and our teams will be on the field and active here in just a second. To note with Talik as well, I believe he is on a straight-up Dagger Dagger Thief, so it's been quite a long time since we have seen a DD Thief played. We're going to see how well it fares off against this very Condi-focused red team over here. For Team Bird is the word. Both teams kind of just skirting around the outside here right now. Nobody actually diving in just as of yet. Considering the comps, I'm not too surprised that we are seeing this, but more than likely what's going to happen here is as blue team grows closer, we are going to see a little bit of that poke coming up, but Fish Lover actually makes the first strike, diving directly in over here onto the red side. Nice amount of damage spike going off over there, waiting with a great sword on the Trust Me, I'm NG, but now things are going to start turning around here as they start to go for damage here as well. You can see that the red team going to start to spread out, try to get out of the way of the damage there, but there is a lot of pressure still going on to Trust Me. Talik, though, has been CC'd, and that's the thing that red team needs there, and they need to be able to throw those Connies on him. As you can see, once again, still taking a look at Fish Lover. He's just skirting around the outskirts here, slowly trying to take down Trust Me, and they manage to take him down here. Talik once again coming in, and there's Fish Lover with that big cleave on the great sword over there. Tamer as well, just to note this too, they've gotten Talik into the downstate. Fish Lover is though very close in the res for Trust Me, and now Fish Lover goes down here as well. So with that said, both members of the red team just trudging through here, getting that res off with so much cleave on the field there too. Very impressive by Team Bird is the word. They're going to get both their guys up. Talik's going to go down. Fish Lover is also going to go down, and with that, we are going to see a very fast round 1 after the initial initiation go into the favor of Team Bird is the word, putting them just one short victory for moving on to the next round. Very close game with the composition that the blue team is running. As you saw right there, they were very much forced to go for an all-in engagement. They had some excellent pressure that entire match, going off on a Trust Me, I'm NG. They had even gotten him into the downstate very quickly, as you ended up seeing there. But Tamer was extremely confident in his ability to get the res out. To be completely honest, I'm not sure if I myself would have gone for that res, but he did. He took that huge risk on going for it, and it ended up paying off there, because as we saw too, there was a significant amount of Condi still left out on the field. A lot of residual damage ended up going off on a Talik and Fish Lover both, and those Connies that had been thrown on them over the course of the fight really just slowly ticked them down. So not only did they manage to get Trust Me and Gem back up, but in the process of all of that going on, those residual Connies ticked down both Talik and Fish Lover, knocking both those guys out, and allowing Bird is the word to take the victory here in Game 1. Now, going into Game 2, blue team I think is going to have to be a little bit more careful. Maybe not go for that all-in engagement that we saw there on the first time. Granted, again, a lot of their comp does rely on the ability to do that, but where they are going to have to be a little bit more strategic with how they engage. Because as we saw, that first engagement went really well, but unfortunately, both of these guys are really not built for that kind of sustained pressure, so they will have to be extremely careful with how long they stay in these fights and possibly try to look for a way out. A way out is going to be very hard for Fish Lover specifically to find, but if they can get it, they might want to consider taking it here and trying to take a re-engagement. But we do see a little bit slower of an engagement for Fish Liver. Does not dive in there with the JI that time. Instead, just takes a direct approach, which does open him up for quite a bit more Condi spike. And blue team already in trouble here. As you can see, they're so weak to the Condis over here. Fish Liver trying to cleanse what he can, and as well, blue team, red team actually doing a very nice job of keeping both those guys on him. But both members of the blue team diving in now, trying to go for that DPS. Good retaliatory strikes coming in from the red team, as you can see here, just not letting them get any damage off there, and as well, just throwing the Condis on him, punishing him for taking him on head on there. And with that said, it does look like this is going to be a much more dominant round over here for Team Bird is the word. You've seen Fish Lover go down, and it does not look like it's going to be very much. It does not look like it's going to be too long here until we see Talek going down as well. So with Talek going into the downstate, that's going to be another 2-0 here in the round of 16. Bird is the word is going to be taking it, which means they're moving on to the round of 8. And that will conclude, guys, the round of 16 play here in the upper half of the bracket. Lower half may still be going on, but unfortunately, like I said, we're not actually covering that, which means I believe in just a few moments here, we're going to be going on to our first quarterfinal of the day, which will be between Farpoint Action and Milk and Biscuits. We'll be right back, guys, with our next match here at the ESL Weekly 2-on-2.
For the road.
And welcome back to the Weekly 2v2, ladies and gentlemen. We are here now in the round of 8, first game here in the upper bracket, which means we're going to be seeing Farpoint Action take on Milk and Biscuits. Farpoint Action, we have not seen these guys play yet today, so we're going to take another quick look at the builds over here. First off, taking a look at Art Tatum, who is going to be playing similar to one of the previous rounds here, a fairly standard Condi Engie. Again, defensive traits being taken over here in his split, going for the full 6 points in Alchemy instead of, say, 6-2-0-4-2 that somewhat was the standard in the last patch, but this has kind of shifted and become the standard. But we still consider this a very defensive build due to the taking of both Backpack Regenerator and Protection Injection. But again, it's not like a difference between like Hambo and like Soldier's Hambo and Zerker's Hambo or anything like that. It's just a slight change up that does give you quite a bit of extra defense. Other than that, though, it is actually fairly squishy overall, as it still runs with Rabbit Amulet, and if you do focus it without him having access to really any cooldowns, he can get bursted down rather quickly, which could be a very likely scenario considering what is available on the blue team once more. Other than that, though, he's running with triple kits, which again, without an Elixir S or anything like that, is going to leave him fairly susceptible to some of the burst over here from the blue team. Keep in mind that he'll still have things like Gear Shield and whatnot that he can use, but I personally might have swapped out the Bomb Kit for something like Elixir S, but we'll see how that ends up paying off in the game itself. Moving on to Zeon Schmuck, first off, taking a look at him, he is going to be running with that Soldier's Hambo that we just talked about. Very similar to some of the other warriors we have seen today. Really the only difference that comes into play with this build is the fact that it is much more tankier, does not have as much sustained damage, can still definitely pack a punch, as you'll see here. And he has a rifle equipped, but I'm pretty sure that's troll. Pretty sure it's still just typical Hambo here. Because of the intelligence sigils, he still can pack quite a bit of a punch, but without those, the damage that will come out from this build is going to be much less than compared to his Zerker Amulet. But he's going to be so much more tankier. As you can see, 25k health, almost 2,000 toughness. He's going to be a monster to try and take down, even with the burst that these guys on the blue team have available to them. Speaking of which, once again, a quick reminder, Grotesque running with a DPS Guardian here, 21614. Pretty standard in terms of how a DPS Guardian does end up rolling. Again, very much so, a lot of damage, comparable to a Thief, to be completely honest, like a DP Thief in terms of the spike it can bring out. Really the only issues that come into play with this build is the fact that it really doesn't have any options to escape a fight. So it's very much an all-in build as to where you have to dive into the fight or you have to win it, otherwise you yourself are going to die, which from a 2v2's perspective is not the worst thing in the world. It's why it's kind of eh for Conquest, but for 2v2 it kind of works because most of these fights will only take place over one kind of engagement anyway. And then of course, last but not least, is Bazzy Z over here running with a Shatter Mesmer. Again, similar to that DPS Guardian, lots of deeps. He has a lot more options to escape, granted, over here on the Mesmer, but he is still a very squishy individual as well. So we're going to see how these two fare off against each other. Still a best of 3 sets. The first team to 2 points moves on. And with that said, as soon as our teams are ready, we can begin with Game 1.
The match starts soon. Last chance to nail down your strategy.
Alrighty, folks, skates opening up in 2 seconds. So, with our players now on the field and ready to go, we're going to see who takes the first game. Keep in mind a few things here. Blue team super squishy. This could give quite a bit of an advantage to the red team, considering they do have Zeon Schmuck there, who's going to be a lot tankier. Also note from the previous rounds too that blue team actually for some reason did choose to focus that warrior. Granted, again, the other option was a Bunker Guardian, so we're not too surprised in the fact that we saw the focus going off here. But we're going to have to wait and see. Art Tatum, like I talked about earlier there too, without really having any access to any instant cooldowns to save himself from being affected by bursts like Elixir S or something like that, he may be in trouble. He's going to be very reliant on his dodges, but as we saw there from the opener, really good dodge coming off there from Art Tatum to get out of the way of that opening spike. You can see that already he's used quite a few of his defensive cooldowns. He's being forced to kind of keep himself to the back line of this too to make sure he's not really just open to this DPS that blue team can bring onto him. But as you see there too, Zeon Schmuck has taken quite a beating in the process of trying to open things up over here for Art Tatum to move freely around the fight. Art Tatum still has that crate he can bring down over here. You can see again that both Zeon Schmuck and Art Tatum are in quite a bit of trouble now. Zeon Schmuck specifically is probably going to end up in the downside here in just a second. Crate comes down, but a MOA onto Art Tatum from Bazzy. Once again, it's going to stop him from resing his teammate. Big spike came off there from Bazzy as well. It'll take Art Tatum into the downstate, and with that, we're going to see our blue team taking Game 1 and putting them one victory away for moving on to the semifinals of this week's Cup. So talking kind of a little bit here about the matchup, like I said earlier, one of the big things in my opinion was the inability for Art Tatum to get out of the way of any of that direct damage. I personally feel that Bomb Kit, especially against these two players, Bazizi specifically, it's really not going to be that useful. I think personally that I would rather see an Elixir S or something like that coming into play, and possibly even an Elixir R. They're going to be under huge amounts of damage for the majority of this fight, so even things like Elixir R may not be completely out of the question, as the res capacity of that, as well as the recharge on the dodges, is going to be a pretty good utility to have against these guys. You can even see there too that Art Tatum really does know how to dodge. We saw him get a very good dodge off right at the start of that engagement that allowed him to avoid, I would probably say, a 20 to 30% reduction of his health pool had he had tanked the damage there right at the beginning. So that was very good indeed. It's just that, again, it did open him up for quite a bit. Keep in mind there too that because Art Tatum really can't tank that damage, Xian Schmach was forced to take the brunt of it directly at the beginning of the fight there, which almost immediately kind of knocked him out of play, and it really hurt those guys. So just some slight adjustments in that regard, possibly making Art Tatum just a little bit more capable of tanking that damage might kind of make the difference for these guys. As well as Xian Schmach definitely has to be very good with landing those Earthshakers, making sure he keeps the stuns off onto both members of the blue teams. Otherwise, we may end up in some trouble here on the side of the red team. But with that said, both teams have rejoined, and we're going to see if any changes are made to either side here. Taking a look now, does not appear so. Looks like they're going to stick with their compositions. Grotesque as well as Bazzi. Not much reason for them to change, granted. And note this as well, that we still have things like the null field over here. So things like Xian Schmach's stability and stuff like that, which he relies on pretty heavily, to be completely honest, to keep himself active and rolling, are just going to get cleansed right off there. And I'm sure that, again, when you consider the matchup here, Bazzi is saving that null field just for that stability, such as when Art Tatum would go down and he tries to go for a res with stability, or vice versa on a stop. So he's keeping that just special for him, and that's a very good utility indeed for Bazizi to have there. But with that said, sorry, 1 second. There we go. With these guys now readying up, our second game is going to get started. We are going to give that extra point, of course, to Milk and Biscuits, as of course they are up 1-0, and we're going to see if it's going to be a quick 2-0 victory for Milk and Biscuits, or will Farpoint Action get the appropriate adjustments needed in order for them to take Game 2, tie the setup at 1-1, and take us into a Game 3. But the gates have now opened, guys. Both players are out and on the field here trying to see. No changes were made to Art Tatum's build, as well as Xian Schmach. Everything is staying the exact same as it was in the previous rounds. So let's take a look and see who's going to take it here. Both teams kind of skirting around here at the moment. I'm sure the blue team, Grotesque specifically, will be the one to engage here, but they are waiting for the appropriate opening so that they could do that without any issues. Things that they have to be careful of is, very specifically, LOS might be a very large issue for the blue team when you consider, again, that Grotesque does have to keep himself on his opponents very heavily. If they do get an option to run away from him, it's very, very hard for a DPS guard to keep up. But there you go. Yep, nicely done. They've got a clear line of sight, as does Bazizi over here. Not really easy for these guys to get out of the way, so they're going to dive directly in. Grotesque popping cooldowns left and right, as a DPS Guardian must do, but it is making progress over here on the members of the red team. Xian Schmach sitting at about 40% of his health pool here, as both Bazzi and Grotesque are focusing him hardcore here, but at the same time, Grotesque is in some trouble here, as he's starting to back away. The Condi's starting to tick onto him, as well as the DPS here, so now he has to pull back a little bit, but there we go, diving in once more. Coordinated burst coming in for both members of the blue team as they try to knock these guys into the downstate. Xian Schmach might be succumbing to the pressure soon, but they are doing much, much better this time. Xian Schmach now sees how low Grotesque is and starts to dive in onto him, but a nice spike heal comes out there from Grotesque, popping 2 of his meditations at once there in order to get just a little bit more health. This is still a very, very close fight as you take a look here. The health pools, generally speaking, are even across the board, but Backbreaker onto Grotesque there knocks him down as well, finishing him off with that DPS. Bazzi is the only one left alive. Xian Schmach, however, is very, very low indeed. There's nothing stopping Bazzi from coming in. The only thing stopping him is his overall health pool here. Grotesque as well, very, very low. Xian just sitting over there in the corner. Bazzi has to make a choice if he saves Grotesque or goes for one of these downings. Both members of the red team are so low here, but as is Bazzi, so even if he takes one of them down here, I'm not very confident in his ability to knock them down. And with that said, Bazzi getting knocked back. His heal comes out in 3 seconds. Keep in mind, he was stealth there for a moment. But while all this is happening, while he's kind of taking his opportunity to move away, red team was regenerating health, and even as you saw there, they got the denial off on the heal. And with that said, Bazzi's going to go down. So Farpoint Action is actually going to tie this set up at 1-1. And with that said, we are going to be heading into a Game 3, folks. So again, much, much better job over there by the red team. You could see that time, too, that they were playing this thing much more carefully than last time, where they were kind of sticking together as a unit. And unfortunately, that did open them both up for a lot of DPS to come into play. You will note, too, an increased aggression that came out there from Art Tatum in that round, at least from what I was seeing there. There was a lot more of him in the fights, generally speaking. In round 1, we saw him playing things very carefully. He was kind of hiding around the corners there, making sure that, oh, I don't want them to jump directly onto me, because because if they do, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble here. He was a little bit more ballsy going into the second round here, and that did obviously allow him to do quite a bit more DPS. And that, to be completely honest, was kind of what was needed. We did not see much retaliatory DPS coming off from the red team onto the blue team in round 1, but in round 2 there was a lot more of that, and you could instantly see the hesitation from Grotesque on his engagements there too, as we were watching him for the majority of the fight. He was hanging back a lot more. He was kind of waiting for Bazzi to go in for his own burst so that they could kind of scare the red team back a little bit and keep them on the defensive. But red team held their line, they kept things aggressive, and with that said, they were able to not only knock out Grotesque there, but kind of deny Bazzi from taking out either member of the red team there too. As Bazzi had an opportunity to get the 1v2, but due to the fact of how evenly split the red team was, Bazzi kind of had to make a choice like, oh, which one do I kill? I personally think had he have chased Xeon, there was a small chance he might have been able to knock Xeon out, but in all that time, Arcanum as well probably would have gotten some regeneration off, and then that would have made it a very ugly 1v1 for Bazzi in my opinion. But that's all over now as we are headed into game 3 here, guys. So the winner of this will be moving on to the semifinals. The loser, unfortunately, is going to be going home. But this is it, the final round here. Let us see who is going to take it. We're going to switch our point of view over onto Art Tatum to watch him this game. Still running with the triple kits here at the moment. Xeon Schmuck as well, I believe, still running the same exact build. You will note that Art Tatum is kind of acting as bait here, though, for Grotesque to dive in. And there you go. But no, look, he wants to get Xeon Schmuck. Dives over towards him instead in order to get the Binding Blade off to keep him in combat here. But again, red team, they're pushing in. They might be taking bait from blue team this time, though. But a nice pull comes off over there. Manages to get, I believe it was Grotesque into play. But at the same time, blue team in general here, they're holding on quite well here. Nice amount of CC coming off from the blue team to make sure that there's not a lot of DPS going off onto Grotesque. You can see them starting to fall back here too. Art Tatum trying to keep the pressure onto Grotesque here, as he now is very low as well. But as you saw, Art Tatum in chasing Grotesque open up the gates for Bazzi to just open up with huge amounts of DPS going in onto him here. Xeon and Art Tatum are both trying to knock out our Grotesque over here, and they have managed to get him down very low. Going to switch to his point of view here. Only 200 health. There he goes. But look at this. Art Tatum is low now too. Bazzi might have an opportunity to bring it down to both, with both members having one guy in the down state over here. But unfortunately, Grotesque just cannot survive for that long. He's going to get knocked out, and Bazzi Z as well will go into the down state. So with that, red team, Art Tatum just barely holding on by a thread there. They're going to take round 3. Excellent comeback there. Very rough indeed on the first round, but really rotated it back against their opponents and managed to take 2 games in a row, which is going to enable them a spot to get a spot in the semifinals. And as such, once again, Farpoint Action is moving on. As for Milk and Biscuits, they played very, very well, but unfortunately, their journey will end here. So that'll end this round, guys. We're going to take another short break, and when we do come back, we're going to be seeing, I believe it'll be Bird is the Word, taking on, Tell Your Mom Thanks in the next game, guys. So we'll be right back in just a second with more of the ESL Weekly 2-on-2. And welcome back once again, folks, to the ESL Weekly 2-on-2. My name is Blue, and we are heading into our second and final round of 8 game here in the upper half of the bracket. Remember, guys, the lower half of the bracket is not being shown on the stream. It is being played in another arena to keep the tournament to a decent length. And due to that, unfortunately, we are unable to spectate it. But we are still going to be showing the second and final round of 8 game here, which will be between Bird is the Word, who we already saw play in a previous round, taking on a team who we have not yet seen play today. That's going to be Team Tell Your Mom Thanks over here on the blue team. So taking a quick look at the blue team builds here, Zanza Gems, first of all, is going to be running, again, another You know, I was saying earlier that, like, pistol shield Condi NGs were, like, a rare occurrence, but that does not appear to be the case here in the EU 2v2s at all. There is quite a few of those guys that end up playing in this. It must be a very much so an EU thing, as we don't really see them at all in NA, with the exception of, like, 1 or 2 players that play it every week. But with that said, again, pretty much the same build as Trust Me I'm NG is running, and that a lot of NGs have already played here today. 6-0-0-6-2 with Rabbit Amulet and Runes of the Balthazar. Huge amounts of Condi Spike, but the build is somewhat squishy. Is going to be running with both Elixir S and Toolkit, so he will have quite a few defensive utilities to offer himself, but once those are gone, if there is adequate focus going on to him, he is going to be in quite a bit of trouble. And keep in mind, too, that some of those defensive utilities, considering that the red team is mainly a Condi-focused team, is not going to be too useful, as a lot of those are kind of put in there to kind of mitigate a very heavy active burst going on to him, which you don't really see any of that from the red team. But moving on, of course, we've got Tom on the blue side running with Dagger, Celestial Strength, Ellie. This is a very typical build for the Elementalist. This is actually the first Elementalist we've seen play today, but already, again, this build has a little bit of DPS to offer. It does start off somewhat low, but as the fight goes onward and he does gain the Might stacks from the Rune of Strength passive effect there, he's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger as the fight goes on. And meanwhile, even with all of that happening, because he's running with the Celestial Amulet and he's already getting the boost to his healing power, his abilities in Water Attunement, and his supportive abilities in general are going to be able to help out not only himself, keeping him alive, but Zanza Gems there as well if he ends up getting into trouble with Condis, which again, those Condis is probably going to be Zanza Gems' weakest point there, so Beauty Tom will have to keep quite a bit of an eye onto him there to make sure he stays up and rolling for the majority of the match. Meanwhile, just doing a quick reminder of the red team once more. Trust Me I'm NG running basically the same exact build over here that we saw Zanza running, so we don't really need to go over that too much. Tamer again running a Spirit Ranger, very supportive indeed, does get the passive Condi and boon effects as well that'll go off not only onto Tamer, but on the Trust Me I'm NG too, and as well has that very, very powerful Spirit of Nature that can be used to get not only Tamer up, but Trust Me I'm NG as well if things start to go awry. But with that said, I believe we are pretty much ready to go, so let's begin. Still a best of 3 set, first team to 2 moves on, and let's get started, guys.
Starts soon. Last chance to nail down your strategy.
Feels nice.
Alright, gates opening up in 1 second here. Both teams are now out and on the field. So again, as a reminder, the overall comp's very Condi focused over here on the red side over here, but the blue side, again, having a fairly balanced comp. Their main damage sources are still going to be fairly Condi related with Zanza Gems over there on that Condi NG, but they've got a little bit more active support in terms of healing and Condi cleanse, in my opinion, through Beauty Tom over there. So we're going to see how things pan out over here. Can see blue team diving right over here into the red team territory. Red team actually took the south exit to the base, and they're now once again kind of kiting around the pillar over here. Overall, blue team does have an excellent lockdown going off on a Trust Me I'm NG here at the moment. Very good job. Brought him directly into a trap. He goes down. We do see an Elixir R tossed onto the floor, and with that, we are actually going to see Trust Me I'm NG getting directly back up into play, but keep in mind, that's a 120-second cooldown, so with that out of play here now, he will end up in quite a bit of trouble if he continues to be under the pressure of all this pressure from the blue team here. He might actually get another proc of that off there, too, because there is a trait. I'm not sure if he's running it, but there is a trait which will actually regenerate all of these abilities here if he drops below a certain health pool. At the same time, red team is starting to turn things around a little bit here. Beauty Tom specifically has been under the pressure of both members of the red team for quite a bit of time, and unfortunately he's not just Superman here, so we can't take that forever. He managed though to get away from that and get quite a bit of heals off and then dive directly back in. Kind of another Condi trap comes off and gets sprung over here by Trust Me I'm NG. They pull him in there with the magnet pull through the crowbar, and then as well we saw Beauty Tom diving onto him to keep him under control so that Zanza can once again just load him directly up with the Condis. It does not seem, however, that Trust Me has the trait, nor does he have the proc available in order to get tossed Elixir R for a second time, but he's already halfway through the he's already halfway through the cooldown of it here too, so if he can survive for about another minute here, he's going to be in an alright position. It does appear though, guys, that this is going to be one of those games that goes on for a very, very long time, a very long skirmish that'll depend very highly on cooldowns and the cooldowns upon the takedowns of either member of this team here, but as you can see, once again, Trust Me gets pulled in. Not too much of a follow-up that time though. You do have to note that in the previous rounds, we saw blue team doing a very excellent job of when they had gotten Trust Me into a CC snag, they also loaded him up with Condis and brought him into a very, very very hard spot for him to survive. That was not the case there in that third time. So you can kind of see here the potency of the blue team wearing down over time here. And this will slowly open up the window for red team as well to retaliate, as well as eventually one of these guys is going to make a mistake. One of these guys is going to end up kind of getting themselves into a bad scenario. And with that, that is where the red team, I feel, will get an advantage. But for them, it's very much a game of survival. Another pull comes off, pulls in Trust Me, loading him up with Condies. Nice CC comes off there as well from Tom, putting Trust Me down to about 40% of his health pool. But as you can see here, excellent usage of the water field. They're going to get quite a few heals off on a Tamer as well as Trust Me there. And oh, what happened there? Ooh, waste his elixir R, which again, that'll give blue team the fuel needed. Yup, they're going to dive onto him now. Big waste of that. Not entirely sure why he threw that down. Might have been anticipating some burst or something, but to be honest, he was at about 60% of his health pool. Even if he did get jumped on, he still would have had 3 or more seconds until he ended up going down. So with that said, that cooldown now wasted. He's going to get focused very heavily. Does lead back with the acid bomb here, but I think there's enough Condies, and indeed there is, in order to take him into the downstate. Keep in mind too that the Spirit has already been used here, so that's not available. Thankfully, Tamer got onto the body quick enough in order to get a forced res off, but at the moment, blue team is just trucking through these guys here on the red side with no sign of slowing down anytime soon at all here. Beauty Tom does dive a little bit too deep into their territory though, and as you can see with that, Beauty Tom is going to be forced to fall back here once again. That'll give red team a little bit more breathing room, but at the same time, I am fairly confident in Tom's abilities to regenerate from this. But we've finally seen a switch up in this, with red team now pressuring onto the blue team. They managed to, I believe, get some stealth off there, though. So with that said, Beauty Tom was able to reset his positioning once more. Both teams are kind of falling back here now at the moment. They're both going to reset. But blue team makes the engagement here once again for, I believe, a second or third time as we head into yet another skirmish here as they continue to try and focus down somebody on the red team here. But Bird is the word. Just trucking through, trying to keep themselves up and rolling. Blue team just has been 90% offense so far this entire game. So even with that said, I think they are eventually going to run out of fuel here, but at the same time, keep in mind that red team does need to do something here. They can't just sit here and continue to tank this damage forever. Eventually, blue team is going to be successful with one or two of these takedown attempts. You can see Tamer getting rather low here. There is some more heals coming off. He does have HS available and ready to go, so we'll put that down here. But again, eventually these guys are going to run out of tricks and they will go down, so red team does need to figure out a plan here in order to turn this fight around. Keep in mind too that this game has been going on for quite some time. I think that ESL runs 10-minute timers, so we're about halfway through this match as well. So I don't know, this might be one of those games where we end up seeing it go to the timer, and we still, because for some reason we never actually come up with a solution to this, we still have no rule for if games end in a tie. So if that is the case, then, well, it might get a bit messy. We might have to take a short break to figure things out. But it does seem, again, that if we continue on the current path, it really just comes down to blue team needing 1 or 2 more lockdowns here. As you can see, once again, on Tamer, they're trying their darn near hardest to try and do that here, but it's just, they just can't get through it there. It's something that comes down to a lack of damage here too, because Beauty Tom is running over here with the Celestial Amulet. He does not have huge amounts of DPS to toss out into play here unless he's been in combat for really long amounts of time, and he's gotten those huge boosts to the strength runes as well. Zanza Game's there too, even though he is a Condi NG. Straight up Condis against these two guys, specifically Tamer can handle those Condis extremely well. Trust me, I'm NG, can't do that, but at the same time here, there isn't a lot of spike damage or something to go up against the blue team. I feel like the spike damage, if they had just a little bit more of it, might fare off well for these guys. But at the same time here, Tamer about to go down. The Spirit does not get the res off there, and as well, plenty of knockbacks are to be found. We do see Trust Me, I'm NG going in there. They have to be careful of this AoE DPS. As you saw there, Tamer actually does end up getting back up. I believe another forceful res was used over there by Trust Me, I'm NG, but blue team is keeping the pressure on this time, and unfortunately, it does not look like red team has a lot of ways to mitigate this. So both Tamer and Trust Me, Tamer goes down. The Spirit's gonna die though. That gets Tamer back up. Oh my goodness. Red team, their lucky streak, I think, is going to be coming to an end here soon, though. But hold on, no, Zanza Game's down. A little bit of trouble. Does get his healing turret down, but as you can see, that's still not too much health for him. And he's now going to have to try and get away from this as red team might go for this pressure. Keep in mind that the red team health pools, though, are rather low, so they have to consider if they do dive in on this, they themselves might be getting trained and get taken down just due to their over-aggressiveness. Tamer gets very low. He's still 8 seconds away from any sort of appropriate heal over here, so if they can focus him down, he will go into the downstate. But no, Zanza Games goes down. Tamer's at 600 health. He goes into the downstate now, too. We're going to have a stomp race. Beauty Tom coming in. Beauty Tom does not have stability. Gets interrupted over there by the Thunderclap, but Zanza Games says no health. It's going to be so close. Good knockback from Trust Me. Trust Me goes down, but Zanza runs out of health. That gets Tamer back up. That gets Trust Me, I'm back up. It's now a 2v1 for control of this game. And with that, I think Bird is the word has trucked through. They managed to keep themselves alive. And unfortunately, due to Beauty Tom just being not able to get the res off there on his Zanza games, a bit of an over-aggressive play there as he tried to go for the stomp on a Tamer so many times when he could have just gone for the res onto Zanza. And with that, Red Team is going to take round 1. They will be up 1-0, and they will be one victory away from moving on to the semifinals, guys. So once again, we're going to take a short, about 30-second break here while we let our teams reevaluate. And as soon as we're good to go, we're coming back to you with round 2 of Bird is the Word versus Tell Your Mom Thanks. Be right back, guys.
That feels good. The match starts soon. Last chance to nail down your strategy.
And we are back now, guys, with round 2 here of Bird is the Word versus Tell Your Mom Thanks. We saw Bird is the Word taking round 1 there just a few moments ago through what could be considered basically the victory through a war of attrition there. We saw, once again, I warned about this too, Blue Team going in there, just again, eventually they were going to run out of steam, and that's basically what we saw there. To be honest, though, the big mistake, from what I could tell at least, was Beauty Tom choosing to instead go for the stomp on a Tamer when we had both Zanza and Tamer in the downstate. He chose to instead go for a stomp instead of actually going for a res on a Zanza. And again, interrupt after interrupt after interrupt. I believe we saw 3 or more interrupts coming off there from, from the members of the red team onto Tom there. Because they denied it so many times, Zanza eventually just ran out of health, and we actually had both Tamer and Trust Me in the downstate during that fight. And with that said, with Zanza getting knocked out, that got them both back up, and then from then on, it was just easy sailing with the 2v1. But look at this, Blue Team, very similarly to the previous round there, huge amounts of pressure going off directly out of the gate here on the Trust Me, I'm NG. At the same time, though, there is a much earlier retaliation that comes out from Bird is the Word, specifically onto Beauty Tom over here. As you can see, he got rather low, and this did force the Blue Team back. They're currently hanging out down over here in this bottom portion, trying to get themselves regen up a little bit. Beauty Tom there specifically all still sitting at a fairly low state of health, but he is going to regenerate himself quite nicely there, and we'll be able to re-engage here in just a second. Red Team, though, I think doing a much better job of kiting this time, but they obviously still have to be very careful of that kind of spike that comes in when both Zanza and Beauty dive in at the same time there. They are doing a very nice job of holdout, though. You can see, again, that as well. I think, too, they're going to be a little bit more evil against their comp this time, because they're going to be playing around the northern side here, which does have quite a bit more verticality compared to where they were fighting in the previous round. It is going to make things quite a bit more harder, in my opinion, for the Blue Team to pull off successfully, just because of the fact that there's going to be a lot less opportunities for Beauty Tom or for Zanza to kind of load the members of the right team up with grenades, and as well, Beauty Tom may have some trouble with navigating this terrain in general, with it jumping up and down a lot. He's going to need his lightning flash a lot more just for navigation purposes, and won't really have it available to jump away and in and out of fights like you would see him doing quite often there. But Blue Team is trying to move the fight back out of here, though. They've picked up onto this with, guys, this is not a spot where we want to be fighting. Keep in mind there, too, that Zanza got very, very low here, just due to the fact that, again, Red Team with the two players that they have, they can fight a very passive fight. The Spirits, and as well, just in general, how Trust Me plays with Condis here. It's very much a waiting game. Sit back, let your opponents come to you, and then while all this is happening, just keep loading them up with Condis and slowly take them down over time. And we're seeing that in play here right now. Zanza Games goes into the downstate. Beauty Tom going to try to go for a res. There does not seem to be... Oh, yep, there we go. Big old bomb goes out and actually interrupts the attempt at a res. And to be honest here, I do not believe that we are going to be seeing Beauty Tom getting Zanza back up. There's just a little bit too much pressure. The bombs on the ground there, too, would prove too much for Beauty Tom to get him up anyway. And with that, we're going to see a much, much faster round 2. Keep in mind that Trust Me is still rather low, so there is an opportunity for Beauty Tom to take him down, but he's just regenerated, so that chance has dwindled by quite a bit. But with that said, it's been brought down to a 2v1. And I believe that our red team, Bird is the word, is going to come back much, much stronger here in the second round, and they should be able to claim victory here, moving themselves on to the semifinals, where they will get their opportunity to take on, I believe it will end up being Milk and Biscuits in that semifinal, which we'll be seeing just a little bit later on today. Beauty Tom, of course, can still try and 1v2 this. I don't believe he will be able to, but he has, of course, at the complete freedom to try and do so, or he can just elongate this match for as long as humanly possible, as Red Team is required to kill him before they actually can claim victory here. So we're going to have a bit of a game of Ring Around the Rosie until Beauty Tom actually goes down. But I think he's kind of getting towards the end of his lifespan here. Water attunement skills have been used. Does get another cantrip off in a second, and he's still got Glyph of Elementals too, but I mean, it's as is at the moment here. Red Team has pretty much fully regenerated at this point, and if not, Tammer will be getting himself back up in just a moment here. So I do believe that Red Team, Bird is the word, has this game pretty much in the bag at this point. So once again, guys, we're going to turn up the tunes while we're waiting for the round to end here, and as soon as it has ended, we are going to get our match results. And with that said, we will be moving on, I believe, to our next semifinal, which, if I'm remembering correctly here, once again, it will end up being between Bird is the word and Milk and Biscuits. That game should be coming up here, guys, in just a few moments, so make sure you do stick around for the continuation of this week's ESL Weekly 2-on-2 Cup, Cup number 11, here on twitch.tv/blue42. Be right back, guys. And welcome back once again, folks. We are now moving on to the semifinals of the ESL Weekly 2 vs 2 Cup number 11. We're actually going to be showing you the bottom semifinal first. This was played in the other server, or at least the previous games leading up to this one were played in the bottom server, but we're now finally going to get a preview of who actually ended up making it through. So over here on the red side, we're going to be having Team Register New Team. Very original name indeed there. Going up against Team Toxic Community on the blue side. Taking a very quick look at the builds. First, for the red team, we have once again Impavitus Odium joining us today, running with, I believe, fairly typical Hambo. He is running it with a Valkyrie's Amulet, which does tend to be a very rare choice for Hambos. I'm not going to say it's bad or anything like that. It is just a very odd choice indeed. We almost always see either we almost always see either strength, or not, apologies, not strength, we almost always see either Berserker's Amulet or Soldier's Amulet being employed to kind of get that either very, very defensive option or the very offensive option. This just kind of tend to be the in-between option for those that might not want to be super duper tanky, like you are with the Soldier's Amulet, but at the same time might not want to be super duper aggressive, but a little bit more squishy, like you are with the Berserker's Amulet. This does kind of offer an in-between option over here. But other than that, it's fairly typical Hambo. We've already talked about that today, so we're going to move now over to Kuve, who I believe is playing 00266. No blasting staff trait in sight. So with that said, it's probably going to be pretty much the same exact build that TomTom was running in the previous round there with Dagger, along with Runes of Strength and Celestial Amulet. No surprises there. Support is very much so a thing on this build, and he can keep Impavitus Onium up and rolling if he ends up getting into trouble, as well as himself. Damage from this build is going to be kind of alright at the start of the game, but it will stack itself up as the fight goes on through the Runes of Strength. Looking at the blue team, of course, we have Saisho, I believe is how he pronounced his name, running with, Power Necro. 60206 at the moment over here, along with a staff, Dagger, Berserker's Amulet, and Runes of the Traveler. Big deeps from this kind of build here, especially again with the Lich. These utilities will probably get swapped out as the game begins, but there is a crap load of damage from this build. At the same time, though, it's extremely squishy, and he's going to be very reliant on his Death Shroud health in order to mitigate any sort of damage there, as well as the utility choices that he ends up making too. Moving on, our last build over here, taking a look, Terran the Grave is, like I said, pretty much the same exact thing as Impavitus Odin. The only real difference is that he's running it with the Soldier's Amulet instead of the Valkyrie's Amulet there, so is going to have the much more defensive option, which is a pretty good choice when you consider that Saijo is as squishy as he is. Having this build will be a very good combination with Saijo. It'll give a lot of extra CC that Terran can use in order to keep people away from Saijo, as well as lock them down too, so that Saijo can do his damage needed in order to actually take those guys into the down state. So we're going to see how things play out, though. Once again, still a best of 3, but the winner of this game does move on to the grand finals, and they get guaranteed 800 gems per player for playing in this week's cup. So with that said, we are pretty much ready to go. So as soon as our team's ready up and as soon as the game begins, we will obviously get started with the first round here. And apologies, it's Seishizo. I don't... Seishizo. I do have to apologize, but when people have names that are that hard to pronounce, I do mispronounce the names, because they're hard to pronounce. So, it's Seishizo, by the way, not whatever I was saying before, and I do apologize for mispronouncing it.
Starts soon. Last chance to nail down your strategy.
I've made life.
Alright, and here we go, folks. Once again, we are now getting started. The utility choices are now visible for Seishizo. Yep, Seishizo over here. He is going to be running with no wells, which, to be completely honest, for a Power Necro is a very odd thing to see indeed. But to be completely honest, when you consider, again, the build in play, or just in general, the kind of scope of this build in the map, it's not too out of the ordinary, because, again, not really fighting on point, so the well isn't going to be of too much use in that regard. So, again, here, these defensive cooldowns, things like Corrupt Boon will be very good for getting opponents off him. You can see the Worm, again, is going to be very crucial for making sure he stays out of the fight. And as you're seeing here, Big Deeps comes out. Lich in play now, going for the DPS onto Impavitus Odium here. Going to try to knock him down. Impavitus going through cooldowns here at the moment to try and make sure that he does not get that damage off. Endure Pain has now expired. Seishizo as well is trying to get away from this DPS as he's still very susceptible to damage in this Lich form. And it seems overall it's failed, but nice transition. Goes immediately out of the Lich into Death Shroud there, trying to lock down Impavitus now. Taking him into the downstate. Kuvi going for a misform res here at the moment, but no, the stop goes through, knocks out Impavitus Odium, and it looks like with that, Terran and Seishizo, but oh no, look at this! Seishizo goes into the downstate. Banner coming out here now from Terran, gets him back up into play, and I think the blue team is secure now. Unless we see a big spike from Kuve onto Seishizo, the game is over here, and with a very well played round one, excellent usage of the Lich, and in general, excellent play from a Power Necro there. Our blue team, Toxic Community, is going to take round one, put themselves up 1-0 in the set here, and put them only one game away from a spot in the grand finals, guys. Be right back with round two in just a few seconds.
to nail down your strategy.
Alright guys, heading into round 2 here now, I think our red team is going to have to be a little bit more careful. Because as we saw there again, they took the bait, they dove directly into the blue team territory, and we just saw there Saishizo doing an excellent job of locking them down. Did get very, very close to going into the downstate there, to be completely honest, but he had that excellent transition going immediately from a very low health stated Lich form to almost a full Death Shroud there, as we saw. And with that, again, Impavidus, who had been focused down there by the Lich, had gotten low enough by that point, but this time we may be seeing a little bit different, pulling back here now. Won't be surprised if we see the Lich, but I think he's waiting here a little bit more for some cooldowns to be expended over here by members of the red team. Saishizo just going to stay in his natural form here now, but there we go, the Lich comes out. Impavidus, though, is doing a much better job this time. He's in a much better area to go up against this. Endure Pain's been popped here at the moment, too, and making him immune to damage here. Trying to rotate around, trying to get this LOS up, but once again, that has expired. Impavidus, though, doing a nice job getting out of the way. That's so far a much less successful Lich form here from Saishizo, and as well, we did see this ability expiring, so with that said, Saishizo gets low, only 700 health outside of his Death Shroud here. He will go into the downstate the second that he's out of this. 700 health. Hold on, wait, he might get this heal off. No, bleeds on him. Did end up taking him into the downstate, and now Kuve moves over. We did see the banner coming up. That's going to get Saishizo back up, but he's almost completely out of cooldowns, getting locked down here once again by an Earthshaker as well, as Saishizo moves back to so much pressure on him. And like I said there earlier, the Power Necro is pretty much a ticking time bomb, so to see him go down is not too surprising. Terran is going to have to try and get him back up manually, but I do not know if that's going to be happening. Kuve, however, goes down, but that's not going to matter, because almost instantly after going down, we see him getting back up with the elimination of Saishizo from this game, leaving only Terra on the grave up and alive, and with him being locked down through these immobilizes here, it looks like red team is going to play things much more successfully this time. They're going to tie the setup at 1-1 and take us into a game 3, guys. So talking a little bit more, and I apologize for not updating the scores there in between rounds either. So, talking... Okay, sorry about that. So talking a little bit more here kind of about the matchup first. We saw there in Game 1 that I don't think the red team was anticipating such eloquent use of the Lich there in round 1. I think they were kind of just expecting it to be a normal well Lich that kind of just goes in, pops in, and they can lock it down from there. They weren't really expecting, I think, Corrupt Boon to be in play. I don't think they were really expecting the Worm to be in play, to be completely honest. That is somewhat of an odd choice in a Power Necro. Usually you do see Spectral Walker, Spectral Armor being employed as the third utility in addition to the 2 wells there, so that might have caught them off guard a little bit. But we saw an immediate adjustment going into the second round here, because of the fact that, again, they caught him and they said, okay, so we tanked the damage fairly well, we got him to waste his Lich form, but unfortunately, because we fought it in the open there, I still ended up going down, because there was nowhere for me to hide, there was nowhere for me to get LOS away from his auto attacks there inside of Death Shroud, so he was still able to take me down. This time, they played things much better. They made very heavy use of the LOS in the stairs area here, and as you saw there, Impavidus was able to just rotate around to keep himself away from the DPS, and as well, we saw the stability getting taken off of Saishizo there, and with that said, they were easily just able to come in there and lock him down. Now, he's still got the transition off into the Death Shroud. He still had that little bit of DPS, but because the Lich form overall was much, much less successful, in the end of the day, there still was not enough damage in order to get either of those red team members into the downstate. And overall, as we saw there too, there was just a little bit too much focus coming off from the red team onto the blue team, and unfortunately, Toxic Community was just not able to actually persevere with that Power Necro after he had been through his cooldowns. That's kind of the thing with the Power Necro, is that once its cooldowns are down, it's extremely easy. It's an extremely easy build to focus down, especially with the 2 players that we see over here from Register New Team. So at the moment here, we are actually, I think, waiting for Saishizo to rejoin, as he was playing on an Asuran. Asurans are not allowed to be played. I'm not sure, again, with the changes coming in, if that rule is going to be lifted for ESL. I know Misspedia will not be lifting it, as there is other reasons beyond the advantage Asurans give. There is spectator reasons that we ban Asurans as well, just because they are a little bit harder to see the animations on for spectators, so we do prefer that people play other races just so that their animations can be seen a little bit more properly for the spectators. So with that said, he's going to be swapping on to, and I believe he is coming back in here right now, so as soon as everybody has rejoined, we should be good to go here for round 3. And as a reminder once more, the winner of this game will be moving on to the finals. They'll be getting that guaranteed 800 gems per player. The loser, however, will go home with nothing this week. So we should be getting started here in a few moments, guys. Just stick around, and as soon as our players are good to go, we're going to begin.
The match starts soon. Last chance to nail down your strategy.
Alright guys, and here we go once again with round 3 here. We're starting our point of view looking off onto Impavidus Odium in the name of the fact that he is going to be, if things go as the previous rounds did, he is going to be that main focus this time. So we're going to see how he handles the Lich form, we're going to see how he kind of kites around things here, and just in general see how he plays this. But moving in, I wanted to see as well if Saishizo is playing the same exact build, and it does appear it is the case. No chain zips from him whatsoever. You can see though immediately, does not want to tank that damage, so he ends up falling back. We're going to move back over to Impavidus Odium though, as again, he's still the prime target. You can see the plan here though from the blue team. What they're trying to do is they are trying to use Terran the Grave as a distraction. They're trying to have him act as bait so that Saishizo can be a late entry to this fight and then come in with his Lich and kind of just melt these guys down. Kuve, however, is not taking that bait, and as you saw there, his job was to focus him down, but now that CC comes off there, and as well, Terran's got him locked down, and Durpain has not come out yet, but Saishizo's not actually focusing on him. He's focusing on the Kuve, and oh my goodness, excellent lockdowns coming out here from Impavidus as well, just trying to make sure that damage stays onto him. Does keep going for the deeps, and as well, we see now the very late pop of Endurpain, but very good pop of it as well. And as well, because they're fighting down over here on the south side, he's making excellent usage of the verticality of this map. It might still not be enough in order to keep Impavidus up and alive, though. Look at this. Saishizo transfers in over into his death shroud, but he has like no death shroud this time either. And because of that, he's so low here at the moment. Only 2.2k health. Does manage to get that clutch worm off. It ports him up towards the top here, but Kuve might still be able to chase him at the moment, just going for the staff deeps here. Move back, Saishizo. You're going to go into the downstate if you're not careful. Transitions into death shroud. Saishizo is crazy, just going directly in with absolutely no health whatsoever. He's going to go into the downstate. Zeron still has that banner, but it gets interrupted once again, putting it on a short cooldown here. He's going to get another opportunity for it here in just a second, but stability was employed over there by Kuve. Could not interrupt that stomp attempt that time, and Saishizo just going ham there, went way too aggressive. Terran the Grave relying way too heavily on the ability for him to get the banner off and get Saishizo alive. So with that said, red team is going to be taking the final game in this set. They're going to move on to the grand finals, and they will be knocking out the Power Necro comp over here from Toxic Community. So with that said, guys, we still have our second semifinal that's coming up in just a few minutes here. Stick around for the continuation of the ESL Weekly 2 vs 2 Cup number 11 coming up in just a few moments here. And welcome back once again, ladies and gentlemen, to the ESL Weekly. Whoa, is my mic? Okay. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, once again to the ESL Weekly 2 vs 2 Cup number 11. We are heading into our second and final semi-final here between Farpoint Action and Bird is the Word. Taking a quick look at the builds here. Xiao Schmuck, first of all, is going to be playing with Barbarian Hambo. Very interesting choice there. Still fairly standard beyond that, though, so don't need to talk about it too much. Art Tatum playing Condi NG 60062 with Rapid Amulet and all that jazz. So again, still nothing too out of the ordinary here. And then meanwhile, we still got pretty much the same exact comp on the blue team that we've been seeing in all the previous rounds. Celestial Spirit Ranger over here with Runes of the Pack being employed, and then trust me, I'm NG playing with his Pirate Runes as well as the Rabbit Amulet, Pistol Shield with pretty much the same build as Art Tatum beyond that. Let's not waste any time, guys. Let's get directly into game one.
match starts soon. Last chance to nail down your strategy.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and here we go. Far point action spawning on the left side of the map on the blue team going up against. Wait, no, apologies. Far point action spawning on the right on the red team. Bird is the word spawning on the left on the blue team. Here we go, guys. Gate is open up. Blue team going to take their opener here on the south side as well. This is, in general, the area where they have chosen to engage a majority of their matchups due to the fact that it is excellent kiting territory for them. And keeping in mind, again, the builds that both of these players are running, they can be very passive with the way they engage their opponents, just slowly kiting them over time and applying connies onto them and just whittling their health pools down over time. They are actually going to give Tamara the opportunity to get up on top here too, and he, yeah, Tamara with those jumping puzzle skills there, jumping directly up top. That actually could have been a pretty good staging ground to fight them, but it does not appear as though red team's going to engage them with that, so red team holding back here, and we're going to have that bit of a standoff while we wait for either team to jump in with their engagement. I do believe, however, that red team will have to be the one to push into it. They are the one with the hambo, and they are slowly starting to rotate around here now. Both of these guys are just trying to stay on polar opposite sides of the map. And we do have that kind of waiting game here now to figure that out. But there we go. Blue team diving in. Xeon Schmock comes in, tries to get some knockbacks over there with the hammer combo, but nothing happening there. But there we go. Connects an Earthshaker now, putting quite a bit of trouble on a Trust Me, I'm Menji. Loaded up with connies there as well. Gonna force the pop of his healing turret here. Thankfully, is able to get away from that, but now stuck in a corner. Gonna have to be very careful of Xeon Schmock, especially in this kind of territory too, as there is not much room to escape. He still has crate available though, so if he wants to throw that down and get his players off him, but no, his own crate gets interrupted over there by Tatum's crate. And once again, Trust Me, I'm Menji very much so locked down. Does have this Talk Solicitor are available, but he's not actually going to get it thrown down there. And with that said, poison thrown onto him and all knocked back. Tamara going to try his best to get it back up. We do actually see the Spirit coming out, and I think we'll see the immediate active proc onto it. Stomp coming in now. Good interrupt comes out there once again. And as well, we do see Trust Me, I'm Engie getting up through the Spirit. Immediate retaliation comes out there from Trust Me, I'm Engie. And with that said, they are going to get their crate down now, too. Red team Tatum falling back. Xeon Schmock still on the front line here, but now taking a bit of a risk because of all this pressure he is putting onto Trust Me. He's still sitting in a field of connies at the moment, and if he continues on for too long, he may find himself in some trouble, as you're seeing here at the moment. Endure Pain proc through traits there, but that's not going to stop the connie pressure from going in. Things like that in general are not going to be so useful. You saw that, too. That's why he ended up swapping out for Singlet of Stamina here, just because there's so much more emphasis on connies here over on the blue team than there is, say, really with any other kind of comp here. But Xeon Schmock still going very aggressive. Has to disengage here soon, though. His health pool cannot support him being in combat for much longer, but he's got Trust Me so low, he just wants to get that pressure on the corpse. The res comes off, though, and as well, the Earthshaker does not go off quickly enough. So with that said, once again, Trust Me, I'm Engie gets himself back up into play. Xeon Schmock is now in the down state completely here. Tatum's gonna have to try and do something to get him back up, but I'm not sure if he'll be able to do that. Poison all over Xeon. Xeon just says, screw it, he's going for the vengeance here now. He's gonna try to take out Trust Me, but I do not know if he can do it here. You take a look, these guys have excellent positioning, and as well, Trust Me's at pretty much full health here. I don't think Xeon's going to be able to pull this off, especially with the Soldier's Amulet that he's running here at the moment. So with that said, Xeon goes down. Tatum is in the down state here, knocked out by Tamara just a few seconds ago, and that looks like we are going to be seeing the blue team, Bird is the word, taking game one and putting them just one victory away from a spot in the grand finals, as well as that guaranteed 800 gems per player. Round 2 is coming up in just a second, guys, so stick around.
match starts soon. Last chance to nail down your strategy.
So let's forget about tomorrow.
And here we go once again, guys, with round 2 now. Here in the second semifinal of the day, it is Far Point Action taking on Bird is the Word. Just saw Bird is the Word take game 1 there. Once again, blue team playing that very passive game. They were able to claim victory against their opponents there through that passive game, taking them out over time. We saw Trust Me, I'm Menji going down a few times there too. Very lucky res indeed that Tamer was able to get off there through the Spirit. We did see an attempt of an interrupt coming off there from Trust Me, but for some reason, it may have actually been bugged, but for some reason the interrupt actually did not go off, and that really saved the day over there for the folks from the blue team, and as such, they were able to turn things back around. Saw Zeon Schmock playing things a little bit too aggressively, ended up getting very low due to him kind of chasing him through a field of Condis, and ended up taking himself down because of that, and Art Tatum unfortunately was not able to get him back up and alive either. He ended up vengeancing in a last-ditch attempt, but by the time he vengeanced, and that was a good interrupt there too going on in Zeon Schmock. Very excellent job by Tamer, but trust me here, let's get back into the action, guys. We'll talk a little bit more about the match in a moment here. Trust Me, I'm Menji does end up getting a little bit too close to the red team and gets locked down here. We're already seeing kind of a repeat of what we had in the last game here, where Trust Me becomes the main focus here, getting locked down very heavily. Taking a look at his cooldowns here. Still, obviously, he's going to have that toss elixir R, so if he does get low, he will have to remember to use it this time, as in the previous game, he did not actually get a chance to do that, throw that down. Trying to attempt a crate there, as you just saw, but another good interrupt comes off. The elixir R has been thrown down, and you can see again the delay on the actual takedown there because of that. They are going for some big deeps, and they do have to do that for a good reason, obviously, as that elixir R, as you just saw, did get him back up into play, but almost immediate retaliation comes out there. Good dodge from Zeon Schmock, getting out of the way of the crate there too, but at the same time, blue team is going to try to turn this match around into their favor now. The red team, though, as you can see, is working much, much better together as a unit this time. In round 1, that was probably one of the bigger issues where we ended up seeing, I believe it was Zeon Schmock, just wildly chasing members of the blue team kind of into their own territory there, and that ended up kind of being the end of them because of that. But now with Trust Me NG going down for a second time, and as well, the Spirit not having the active up and ready to go, unfortunately, Trust Me is going to get knocked out here with little to no contestation whatsoever. This will leave only Tamer up and alive. And with that, red team should have a pretty secure victory here in game 2. And with him going into the downstate, I believe we'll see Tamer get up one more time. But unfortunately, on his own here, and with the health pools in general here with the red team, yeah, he's not even going to fight it. So with that said, Far Point Action is going to take game 2. We're going to see a set tied at 1-1, which also means that we're heading into game 3, which will be coming up in just a few moments, guys. Be right back with the ending of this set.
The match starts soon. Last chance to nail down your strategy. Let's get this started.
Alrighty, folks, and here we go. Third and final round of our semifinals here. Far Point Action taking on Bird is the Word. Just saw game 2 happening there. Much, much stronger performance there by Far Point Action. Kept themselves together as a unit. Kept the pressure on to Bird is the Word. And in the end of things, it just ended up being a little bit too much for the blue team to handle. And we saw a similar mistake there made instead by Bird is the Word this time, where we saw Trust Me in an attempt to flee his opponents, ended up separating himself. And unfortunately, because the red team just in general had better positioning there, they were able to meet up with him and just lock him down in a 2v1, knocking him out. Tamer had gotten to the corpse just way too late. And because of that, they were easily able to eliminate Trust Me, I'm NG there without really any interference coming in from Tamer. But this time, once again, let's wait and see. Tamer is going to try and act as the bait. We saw in the previous 2 rounds here that almost every opportunity of engagement, the red team went immediately over onto Trust Me, I'm Engie. I think in this round that Tamer is going to try to use himself as bait here. Hopefully they'll get onto him here, and Tamer will be able to dodge out of the way here, as he does have quite a few on-weapon dodge skills that he can use to try and mitigate some more damage here. But regardless, Tamer's a little bit impatient here, getting tired of waiting for them to jump on, so he jumps onto them. Going over here onto, oh, nice pull comes off there as well. Kind of stopping Tamer in his tracks, but as well does actually get him out of the crate, as we saw there too. So I believe crate actually ends up getting wasted by Artatum, and indeed it does here. But with that said, they're still going to chill back over here, not actually going to push over towards where the blue team is. They've got the crate on the floor here. They might as well try to use the positioning, but at the same time, blue team says, well, no, we don't really have to push onto you here, so we're just going to run away and push for a re-engagement here in just a few moments. They're looping back around here now,
Refreshing. I feel energized.
as well as we wait and see. Blue team slowly starting to pressure back in. They do open themselves up for a little bit of damage that can come in over here if we see Artatum tossing grenades, which he's going to be doing here right now. But at the same time, blue team playing a much more cautious game. They know that, again, the second they engage here, they have the opportunity to throw those connies onto him, but at the same time, they have to be very careful, specifically with Trust Me, I'm Engie, with him being around Zeon Schmach there. They cannot have him get locked down because he cannot take that direct damage for a very long time. He'll find himself in the down state extremely quickly, and things will just start to get very, very messy from there for Bird is the word if they end up taking that direct damage. But with that said, once again, Tamer's going to try to come in here, get some extra pressure onto Artatum. At the same time, Zeon Schmach will see this as an opportunity to dive directly over towards the position of Trust Me, I'm Engie, but at the same time, Trust Me goes for the direct fallback. And this was an issue we had in a previous set here too, where again, because Trust Me, I'm Engie is playing so defensively, he ends up actually not really getting much damage off at all, and ends up being more of a hindrance to his team than he actually ends up being a boon there. As you can see, Tamer's now starting to get low too, so red team has enough of an incentive to switch their target over to him, and they're just now going to try to focus him down instead of actually going for a focus on a Trust Me, I'm Engie. Now Trust Me, I'm Engie has the opening. Now he has this time where he can go for the DPS. He's going to do a lot more DPS than Tamer will do, obviously. So with that said, this is his time to shine. He needs to come in here. He needs to do something crazy. He needs to get his stuff. He needs to get his condies out onto the field here. Otherwise, once again, his teammate is going to go into the downstate very, very soon. It does appear that he definitely has started to do so. Artatum specifically is in quite a bit of trouble, but as are both members of Bird is the word here too. We saw a nice amount of spike coming off there due to that awkward positioning they were fighting on over there by that ramp. Trust Me, I'm Engie goes down, but he should get back up with the elixir R there, and indeed he shall. Trust Me, I'm Engie goes down. Zeon Schmach coming in for a battle standard with stability. We saw the crate coming in, but unfortunately the crate did not interrupt due to the stability on Zeon Schmach there. And with that said, Artatum will once again get back up into play here too, but both members of the red team are still extremely low. Tamer does have the nature spirit out, so we are seeing the passive regen going off onto both Trust Me and Tamer here at the moment. They need to eliminate that, otherwise that is going to be way too much regen for them to deal with. Zeon Schmach, as well as you can see over here, unfortunately coming under way too much pressure. He goes into the downstate. Connie's knocking him out, along with that immobilize, really being killer for him. And as well with that big old bomb going off there, stopping Artatum from going for a res attempt and kind of eliminating the stealth advantage that they had there for a few seconds too. Artatum way too low here, to be honest. It looks like blue team has weathered the storm. Again, playing that game much more passively, kind of trying to force Tamer as the bait. That seemed to have worked. And the second they switched to Tamer as well, Trust Me, I'm Engie was really just able to come in there with that huge amount of deeps and knock them out. Zeon Schmach is in vengeance here at the moment, but unfortunately he's not going to be able to do much with that. He'll be dying in just a second. And with Artatum down, that's going to be it, guys. Bird is the word with a very nice comeback in round 3. They're going to be moving on to the grand finals, and as well, they're getting guaranteed 800 gems per player for their participation today. We still have that grand finals, a best of 5 set coming up here in just a few moments, guys, so stick around as we come up to the conclusion of the ESL Weekly 2 vs 2 Cup, numbered 11, starting in just a few minutes. Be right back, folks. Alright guys, for the last time today, welcome back to the ESL Weekly 2 vs 2 Cup number 11. We are here now in the Grand Finals, a best of 5 set to determine our winner for this week. The winners will be going home with 2,000 gems per player. As for our second place, they will be going home with 800 gems per player. The teams that'll be playing today over on the blue side, we have registered new team who paved their way through the bottom bracket and are here now. That's consisting of Kuve and Impavidus Odium. Meanwhile, from the upper half, we have Bird is the Word, who we just saw take their 2-1 victory to get their spot here in the Grand Finals today. That's going to be Trust Me, I'm NG and Tamer playing for that squad. Taking a very quick look at the builds from the red side, we have a very Condi-focused composition over here, running with 6-0-0-6-2, Pistol Shield, Condi Engineer, with a Rabbit Amulet, as well as Runes of the Pirate to get that AI boost to his build over here, and then Tamer will be acting as a support, but still a lot of Condi output as well from this build, running with a Celestial Amulet, Runes of the Pack, along with a Shortbow, Sword Dagger, and then the trait split being 2-0-2-6-6-0. Meanwhile, on the blue side, we have a little bit more of a balanced composition over here from these guys. First off, taking a look, we have 0-0-2-6-6, I believe it will be. Oh, is this a Blasting Staff? No, it's not. I thought this was going to be Staff Ellie. Could still be it, considering the Mercy Runes, but more than likely, considering the trait splits here, it'll probably be Dagger, Dagger, Celestial Ellie. He's going to be sacrificing quite a bit of damage because he has not chosen to run with the Runes of Strength, but the Mercy Runes will be very good indeed for trying to get Impavidus Odium if he does have to go for a direct res onto him. Now, I'm curious to see how offensive Impavidus Odium is going to choose to be, and yep, indeed, to no surprise, we will be seeing with the Zerker Amulet coming into play on Impavidus. That'll give him a lot more shock potential, will make him a little bit more squishy. He's still going to be quite a tanky individual. Just in general, warriors tend to be very tanky in general there. He's still got 1.3k toughness. He still has 22,000 health, so he's still going to have quite a bit of bulk to it, but because he's not running with a Soldier's Amulet or something similar to that, he will go down much, much quicker. However, the damage from this build is going to be absolutely crazy, and really, to be honest, if Trust Me, I'm NG gets locked into at least 2 swings of the hammer combo, he might go into the downstate just off of that alone. So we're going to see how that plays out. Again, Kuve will act much more as support for the blue team, with Impavidus acting as the main damage source, definitely focusing a little bit more on physical damage over here in the blue team. Meanwhile, on the red side, it's a much more Condi-focused comp, with Tamer acting as the support over here on Spirit Ranger, and Trust Me, I'm NG playing a full Condi NG build, and him being the main damage source. So with that said, guys, as soon as we are ready to go here, we shall begin with this best of 5 set. No team will get an advantage as this is a single elimination tournament, but the first team to 3 points will win this week's cup and go home with the 2k gems per player. The game is now beginning, guys, so let's get to it. Alright, and here we go. Gates opening up to no surprise as well. Red team going to be coming out of the south side here. In general, like I talked about earlier, they do tend to do this a lot, because if their opponents want to play extremely aggressively and dive directly onto them, they can use this area as kind of a staging ground for rotating around and just in general kiting their opponents here so that they can slowly whittle those Condis onto them and take them down over time. That's one of the strengths that this red team gets, is that they can still be offensive while kind of retreating as well because of the effect of the Condis there. As for the blue team, they're going to have to be a little bit more aggressive as they rely more on physical damage than they do Condis. They will still have a decent amount of access to burning and things like that, but overall they will have a little bit more shock potential there, and as such are forced to be a little bit more aggressive. When they're on the defensive, they're not really going to be doing damage, and their opponents will have quite a bit of extra breathing room to keep themselves up and alive. But with that said, the combat has now begun here, and we are going to be seeing Trust Me, I'm NG being focused very heavily by the blue team. He's handling it quite well, though. Blue team in general here, the positioning is not the best. They were scattered quite a bit here, and this did open up for Tamer to get quite a few Condis onto Impavidus. As you can see, he's definitely the lowest tier at the moment, but at the same time, you've got Kuve coming in there, definitely focusing it down. Trust Me, I'm NG pretty heavily here, but at the same time, with them fighting over on this southern end, he's doing a nice job too of just kiting around, avoiding that damage. Tamer has actually taken quite a beating though in his own skirmish against Impavidus Odium over there. Trust Me, he's going to try to turn that around with a crate, but unfortunately does not connect too well over there, and that once again will leave Trust Me in a very awkward position as well. Getting him immobilized, updraft comes off over there from Kuve, and as well, big flame blast comes off, taking him down to a pretty low status of health, forcing him to pop his healing turret. Thankfully, with that healing turret available, he was able to regenerate himself. And as well, again, another turnaround here. It goes into the favor of the red side now, as Impavidus Odium puts himself into a very, very bad position. Thankfully, has plenty of ways to cleanse Condis here, but still only rolling with 2k health. And indeed, we do see him going into the downstate. Kuve, again, those Mercy Runes coming into play, getting him up much, much faster. 30% faster, if memory serves me correctly, than he can with any sort of normal runes there. So with that said, he gets Trust Me back, or he gets Impavidus up there very, very quickly. At the same time, however, however, as we did see Tamer going down. Trust me, MG uses Elixir R to get the res potential back on Tamer there too, getting him back up into play and keeping the red team alive and rolling here. So once again, we're going to be having, like I've been talking about earlier, another one of those somewhat slow matchups that really ends up coming down to how many mistakes does everybody make, and just in general, a waiting game on cooldowns here. The second somebody runs it against, the second somebody finds himself in a lockdown position without the appropriate way to keep themselves alive and running, that will be the end game for either of these rounds here. Going in, Tamer over there, as you saw too. Once again, the pressure from Kuve is actually, to be honest, the pressure from Kuve is almost greater than the pressure from Impavidus there. Impavidus just seems to be coming in there to get the finishing blows off onto him, but it definitely will do the job as you see Tamer going down. Note too that Tamer actually had his Nature Spirit out, but was unable to get the active proc off onto that too, and because again there just was not really any cleave at all coming in from Trust Me, they didn't really have to retaliate and do AoE onto that Spirit, taking the risk of killing it there. So with that said there, blue team taking advantage of the mistake by Tamer, knocking him down, and with that said, making it easy street with the 2v1. Blue team, register new team, is going to be taking game 1 here, putting them just 2 short victories away from a victory in this week's ESL Weekly Cup. We're going to take a short break, guys. When we do come back, we're bringing you round 2 of this matchup.
Touch the sky. Tonight we're coming alive.
Start soon. Last chance to nail down your strategy.
Tonight we're coming
Let's get this started.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, once again to the finals of the ESL Weekly 2 vs 2 Cup number 11. We just saw game 1 go into the favor of a registered new team there. Unfortunately, again, a very close matchup, very much so a war of attrition kind of game here, like we do see a lot when teams run overall tankier compositions here. But unfortunately, Tamer caught himself out in the open there and as well made some mistakes on the cooldown usage of his ultimate there, and as such, he was not able to get himself back up into play, and that really just ended up ending the game. Going into the second round here, we're probably going to see a very similar scenario where both teams just go directly at each other here, just try to force cooldown usages and in general try to whittle down their opponents over time. It'll very much so be the name of the game for this entire final here, and the team that ends up running out of gas first will be the team that more than likely ends up losing the matchup. At the moment though, we're currently taking a look at Kuve, who once again is playing with that double dagger celestial build, runs with Mercy Runes though, which actually came into play pretty heavily there in that last game. Had he not had those Mercy Runes, I believe he honestly might not have had enough res pressure in order to get his teammate Impavidus Odium back up. So giving himself the damage there a little bit, relying a little bit more onto Impavidus Odium in order to connect that damage onto the team, with him acting much more as a support character as well as kind of a just a general bruiser. It's very odd. To talk about the builds here a little bit for the blue team, because almost always you see the Hambo acting as a bruiser itself. It's not really usually a main DPS component, at least from a conquest standpoint. It's almost always kind of a bruiser there, but in the 2v2, at least in this specific matchup, we're seeing it act much more as kind of a main DPS thing, with Kuve acting as the one who keeps the pressure onto his opponents, with him acting as well as the kind of support for his team. So it's very, very interesting to see. You do see though again that it has worked once more. We see Trust Me, I'm NG going completely into the down state. I believe we had the Spirit come out, but it was interrupted, and with that said, Tamer is just going to eat the damage here now. Has no attempt at a 1v2 there, and I'm not surprised that he's going to just eat the damage there. As once again, considering the health pools and everything, it was a very, very rare chance that he was actually going to be able to 1v2 that matchup. So very well played once again there by Register New Team. They're going to be up 2-0 now, and they're just going to be 1 victory away from taking this week's cup. We'll give them an extra point, and we're not going to go to break just yet because I want to keep talking about it. But yeah, kind of like I was saying there, Impavidus Odium, on the Hambo. We almost always see the Hambo acting as the bruiser. He's the one that kind of just keeps the opponents controlled, keeps the CC on them, and in general, keeps them corralled to a specific section of the map and or just in general the fight area. We're seeing almost the complete opposite here in this matchup, where the DD Ellie is acting as the bruiser. He's the one who's pushing into the enemy territory. He's the one who's trying to corral them, trying to get them into a singular spot. And Impavidus Odium over here running with the Zerker amulet, and in general having a lot more damage, especially with Kuve not actually running with the Soldier's amulet or a Holbrecht's amulet there. He's the one who kind of just comes in, leaps in with an Earthshaker, I'm guessing, and then just goes for the finishing blows to try and take them out. And so overall, from a 2v2 perspective, that seems to be working very, very well, as with Impavidus jumping into the fight, Kuve will already be there. So if Red Team tries to get a sudden switch off onto it, it's not going to be very hard at all for Kuve to suddenly switch off his own gears and try to act as a kind of secondary support for Impavidus as well, especially with those Mercy Runes, and especially again with him still running Celestial Amulet on a DD Ellie. Kuve as well, because he's still running with that build there, it also serves a benefit to him, because with him being in those team fights, he still has all that support, he still has all those benefits to himself, and in general he can last much, much longer in direct combat probably than Impavidus can, say if he was running a Soldier's Amulet or something like that. So a very excellent comp here from the blue team, and it seems to be working extremely well with the circumstances at hand here. But once again, we have just begun with round 3. If we see Register New Team taking this one, that is it. The cup is over for today, and the blue team's going to walk home with those 2k gems per player. If we see the opposite though, if Red Team can finally get their game together here and make a comeback here now in the 3rd round, we're going to be heading into another round here to see if they can keep themselves alive or if Register New Team will claim triumph. But it is match point here, guys. So let's take a look at the fight. Red Team hanging back here at the moment, being a lot more passive. Kuve does get an opportunity to swoop around there, though, and once again try to push them back a little bit. Impavidus, though, jumps in. Not too successful of an Earthshaker, though, but at the same time, it's not going to be any too much sweat off his shoulders, as that's still a fairly short cooldown ability, as he continues to kind of just chase the Red Team here, hopefully pushing them into a corner eventually where he can get in and engage onto them. And that seems like it may be coming up here very soon. Dives in. Good dodge comes out from Tamer, just escaping the kind of fury there of that Earthshaker, too. And as well, we saw Impavidus getting knocked into the hole there. That is going to be very bad for him indeed, as it does leave Kuve kind of out in the open, but at the same time, I believe Kuve jumped down in response to that. Nope, actually hanging out over in LOS territory here, just hanging away from that to ensure that, again, he doesn't get opened up for too much DPS either. And as well, Impavidus jumps in. Good retaliation from Tamer, though, once again getting that fear off onto Impavidus to prevent him from getting too much of a lockdown with the hammer combo off, and just in general, getting him away from that. So with that said, though, Red Team now trying to get themselves away from this, and as well, trying to lock down a little bit of damage onto Impavidus Odium himself, as once again, does not have as much Conti Cleanse as Kuve have, does not have as much in general survivability as Kuve has available to him there, too, but at the same time, Kuve sees that extra pressure. He jumps directly onto Tamer to try and stop all of that from happening. But I think Impavidus, to be honest here, might be playing things a little bit too aggressively. He's hanging out directly in this fight. That has not been his style in the previous 2 rounds. He has been much more kind of a person that hangs out towards the back, hangs out away from his opponents there, and just waits for the prime opportunity to jump in. This time, he's much more in the fight. At the same time, that is kind of due to the fact that we do see the Red Team fighting in a much harder area for the blue team to keep that strategy going in. But at the same time here, the tables are now starting to turn. Tamer very low indeed. Does have a healing spring coming off here in just a second. Pretty much going to be forced to pop that. And to be honest here, he may want to consider bringing out the Spirit of Nature very soon as well too, because as you see, he is getting locked down, has no stability or anything like that, though. Thankfully, a crate is available for Trust Me I'm Engine to use. That once again is going to prompt Impavidus Odium to fall back here. But overall, blue team still hanging on quite well. Impavidus is going to fall back here. Not sure if red team will take the bait on that. And it looks like that they're not. Impavidus himself there too does still try to go for a little bit of an aggressive push, but he has to be very, very careful considering his current health pool. Tamer once again rotating around. They are trying to hunt down Impavidus, but Tamer rotates a little bit too much there and actually moves away from that as Impavidus gets that nice juke off there, forcing those guys to jump down. Still somewhat low, has Condi immunity, thankfully, though, so that is going to give him quite a bit of breathing room here. But Tamer getting a little bit too close. Can he connect any of this damage? And it does not appear he can here at the moment. Kind of just sitting on his lonesome as Tamer escapes that zone. But at the same time, this fight continuing onwards here. This is actually going to be a prime opportunity for Tamer to go down, to be completely honest. Yep, all in his lonesome here. Big mistake by Tamer, disconnecting over there from Trust Me I'm Engie. We do see the Elixir R coming down, but at the same time, nicely done there. Indeed, gets the Thunderclap off, stops Impavidus Odium from doing enough cleave in order to keep Tamer in the down state, and excellent timing on the res there from Trust Me I'm Engie. They're going to get him back up. Blue team will definitely fall back after that unsuccessful stomp attempt and try to reset things here a little bit while Kuve keeps the pressure on, keeps red team on their toes, and hopefully this should give Impavidus the time needed in order to retaliate. Tamer, though, getting a little little bit too close. Thankfully, he does have the dodges, and Condi Spike going on to Empavidus, fearing him as well. He goes down. To be honest, that was a bit scary there with that fear. He died mid-fall. Had he have taken fall damage there, that would have actually killed him and probably would have been an extremely clutch move. But unfortunately and thankfully, because of the area he died in, that was not the case. Empavidus, though, just about to go down, pops his vengeance here. But to be honest, when you take a look at this, just in general, the health pools here, not is going to be able to get a kill in time in order to kind of validate this vengeance pop, and he's going to be dying in just a second. So with Empavidus going down, that leaves only Cuvée up and alive, and I think Bird is the word has finally managed to take a game here, and indeed they shall. Cuvée is just going to eat the DPS here, and with that said, this set will finally see some points thrown onto the board for Bird is the word. They're going to bring the set up to 1-2, still in the favor of Register New Team, but now Red Team is on the board, and they have stopped the Blue Team streak here, so hopefully that should give them a bit of a mental boost going into the second game here as well now, too, or going into the fourth game here now as well, too. So with that said, round 4 is coming up in just a few moments, guys. Stick around for the continuation of the grand finals of the ESL Weekly 2 vs 2, number 11. Be right back.
Starts soon. Last chance to nail down your strategy. Let's get this started.
Alright guys, welcome back now once again to the grand finals of the ESL Weekly 2 vs 2 number 11. We are here now in round 4. Blue Team was on a winning streak, but unfortunately it was just halted in the previous round there. Bird is the word, finally managing to make a comeback there. And with that said, we're now heading into our 4th game. Still the match point for Register New Team if they're able to come back here now and take this next game, but at the same time, Bird is the word has just managed to take a game here, getting that bit of a mental advantage. I don't think it's going to be too much off the shoulders of Register New Team, but it's still definitely a bit of a mental boost to themselves, as again, losing 2 games in a row, definitely not going to put you in too good a position, but now finally making that comeback when it pretty much all seemed lost, is definitely going to be a pretty big boost for your squad. We're currently looking at Tamer, once again, the Spirit Ranger for the Red Team here at the moment. Still has to be very careful with his positioning here, as they are going to be fighting in that open field here. If they end up getting into trouble, they're not really going to have anywhere they can evacuate away from, and Blue Team will pretty much have free reign on chasing them here if they stay in the fight. But Tamer, again, nice dodges, keeping himself out of the way of any of the big bursts that can come in here. Does end up messing up, though. Gets hit by that updraft there, as we just saw. But at the same time, there wasn't really much follow-up onto that, too, so it doesn't end up paying too much of a price for that. At the same time, Cuvée, though, moving in, does get out of the way of another knockback. Very good dodging here by Tamer, too. Just to note this, you can see that just time after time after time, using not only his weapon dodges, but his natural dodges as well here, just to keep himself out of the play of all these CCs. If he had gotten hit by really any of these, he would have ended up in the downstate, so really excellent play by him indeed here at the moment. But taking another look here at the fight, Trust Me, I'm NG is in a very, very messy spot here, as you can see. Just completely locked down in between both Empavidus and Cuvée there, so forced to use quite a few cooldowns in order to get himself free of that. Red Team is now trying their best to kite, but again, things are not looking too well for that. Tamer gets the Nature Spirit out. We do see its res coming off here right now. No, Nest Updraft does manage to interrupt that, and with that said, Trust Me is going to stay in the downstate here. Tamer as well going, no, they killed the Spirit, too much DPS. Tamer and Trust Me both get back up into play there. Blue Team, you gotta watch the health pool on that. Excellently done there by the Red Team. A bit of a lucky break there by the Red Team, but now once again they're back up in play, but how long can they keep themselves up and in play here? Trust Me goes into the downstate, and Empavidus coming in for a stomp. There's no more Spirit. Reds was very close, but not enough. Trust Me gets knocked out. Tamer gets his heal off, but again, it's 1v2, and I don't think he can do much else. So with that said, Blue Team, with that constant pressure, is going to keep the Red Team on their toes. Not enough of a retaliation for them in order to stop the Blue Team in their tracks. So with that said, Blue Team, Register New Team, is going to take this week's cup. Cup in a 3-1 victory here at the Grand Finals. They're going to be going home with the 2,000 gems for players, so congratulations to Impavitas Odium and Cuvée for taking first place here this week. And as well, let us not forget our second place team who played very well as well. Bird is the word over here. Tamer and Trust Me I'm Menji are going to be going home with 800 gems per player. But once again, guys, that is the end of this week's Cup. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Don't forget as well, we have the North American 2v2 Cup happening in just a few hours here, about 4 hours from now. Open signups for that can be found over at battlefy.com/Misspedia. Make sure you guys do follow ESL on Twitter and Facebook as well. The links are pointing in the right spot right over here, over at facebook.com/ESL Guild Wars 2 and as well at ESL Guild Wars 2 on Twitter. Make sure you follow them to be kept up to date with all of the upcoming cups. Other than that though, guys, I hope you have enjoyed today's cup. I don't have any giveaways for you right now, unfortunately, but we may have some later. Don't forget to tune in for that 2v2 cup a little bit later on today though, guys. Once again, that is happening at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Other than that, though, I hope you have enjoyed today's stream, and from all of us here at ESL, we hope you have an excellent day. See you next time, guys.